My mother hid my existence from her new husband for 20 years. He just hired me as his live-in caregiver. I sit at her dinner table every single night. Every night my mother passes me the potatoes and says, "Thank you, Miss Rivera," like she never pushed me out of her own body. My name is Elena Rivera. I am 23 years old. The woman who calls me Miss Rivera is my mother, Marisol. She had me when she was 18. She left me with my grandmother and moved 2 states away. When I was 6, my grandmother told me my mother married an older man with a massive house and told him she had never had children. She wanted a completely clean slate. My grandmother died when I was 19. I was working at a local home health agency, cleaning bedpans and charting medications. One afternoon, my manager pinned a new client profile to the office board. Live-in caregiver needed, male, 72, early Parkinson's disease, private home. The agency always requires a photo of the home's exterior to verify wheelchair accessibility for the client file. The printed photo showed a sprawling front porch, and my mother happened to be standing on the steps holding a small dog. I recognized her immediately. She had the exact same mole under her left eye, and the exact same smile that never quite reaches her eyes. I asked for the job. His name is Robert. He is not my father. He is a retired engineer. His hands shake. He can no longer button his own shirts, and he apologizes profusely every single time I have to help him stand up. He is gentle and kind in a way that makes my chest physically ache. He calls me Elena. He asks me how I slept. My mother saw me on the very first day I walked in with my suitcase. I was standing in her magazine Perfect foyer. She was walking down the stairs carrying a load of laundry. She stopped dead. Her face did absolutely nothing for 3 heavy seconds. Then she smiled a tight, polite smile and said, "You must be the new caregiver. I am Marisol, Robert's wife." She never said my name. She never even blinked. Robert shuffled out of the living room and said, "Marisol, this is Elena. She is going to be a big help to us." My mother nodded. "Wonderful. Elena, we eat at 6:30 sharp." That was 3 weeks ago. For 3 weeks, I have lived in the bedroom at the far end of her hallway. Every night at 6:30, we sit at her expensive dining table. Robert sits at the head, my mother sits to his right, and I sit to his left because someone needs to cut his meat. At first, the dinners were just quiet. But as the days turned into weeks, the atmosphere grew incredibly thick. Robert started depending on me more, and his genuine curiosity about my life became a daily, mounting threat to her carefully built reality. Last Tuesday, Robert asked me where I grew up. Marisol completely froze, her knuckles turning bone white around her wine glass. I told him the name of my grandmother's town, and my mother rapidly changed the subject to the neighbor's new fence. Yesterday, Robert watched me pour his tea and chuckled softly. He looked at Marisol and said, "It is funny, you and Elena have the exact same cadence when you speak." My mother did not say another word for the rest of the meal. Tonight, after dinner, Robert was very tired. I helped him into bed. I gave him his pills and turned on his white noise machine. He reached out, grabbed my wrist with his shaky hand, and said, "Thank you for being here, Elena. You feel more like family than an employee to me." I went back down to the kitchen. My mother was alone, washing the dishes. There was no one else on the ground floor, and the heavy kitchen door was closed, leaving us completely without witnesses. I stood behind her and said, "Why didn't you ever tell him?" She didn't turn around. She kept scrubbing the same porcelain plate. "Tell him what?" she asked. "That I am your daughter," I said. She rinsed the plate and set it on the drying rack. Her voice was flat. Not mean, and not sad. Just entirely flat. "You are Elena Rivera," she said. "You are Robert's caregiver. I hired an agency. That is what you are. You left me." I pushed. "For 20 years you looked that kind man in the eye and told him you never had a kid." She finally turned off the faucet, dried her hands with a cotton towel, and looked directly at me. She did not give me a generic excuse about doing what she had to do. Her voice was cold and precise, revealing exactly what kind of person makes this choice. "I grew up sleeping on a bare mattress on the floor with 3 sisters, suffocating in a humid, roach-infested apartment," she said quietly. "I wanted this house, Elena. I wanted this life. If I had stayed and played the teenage mother, you would have anchored me to that dirty floor forever. I chose survival. You had your grandmother, and you turned out fine. She did not cry. She did not apologize. She did not break down. She simply stated her cruelty as a geographical fact. I said, okay. I walked out of the kitchen and headed toward the stairs to check Robert's water pitcher. On the way, my foot caught the thick edge of the hallway runner. I stumbled and knocked over a laundry basket of clothes I had folded that morning. Clean socks scattered everywhere. I sat down on the hardwood floor in her flawless house, with her innocent husband asleep in the next room, and I ate the cold potatoes I had wrapped in a paper towel because I had been too nauseous to eat at the table. I sat in a pile of clean socks and cried quietly into my hands. I did not quit. I did not pack my bags and storm out into the night. I woke up at 5 in the morning to help Robert to the bathroom because he genuinely needs my help. The emotional earthquake finally hit tonight, during dinner. We were sitting at the table at 6:30 sharp. Robert was having a particularly bad tremor day. He was struggling heavily to lift his fork. I gently reached over, took his plate, and began slicing his roasted chicken into small, manageable pieces. Robert watched my hands work. Then he looked up at my face. He stared at me for a very long time. The dining room was completely silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock. Robert looked across the table at his wife. He did not yell, and he did not throw his glass. His voice was incredibly soft, heavy with a devastating realization that shattered the room. I do not know how I never saw it before, Robert whispered. She has your eyes, Marisol. She has your exact eyes. My mother stopped chewing. The truth had finally entered the room, and she had absolutely nowhere left to hide. The silence that followed was suffocating. Robert slowly placed his hands in his lap, looking at the woman he had loved for 2 decades, realizing his entire marriage was built on a ghost. But Robert is sick, and he cannot navigate this massive house alone. And I refuse to abandon him the way she abandoned me. Tomorrow evening, my mother will be at this exact table at 6:30 sharp. She will look across the wreckage of her exposed life, she will pass me the potatoes, and she will say thank you, Miss Rivera. And I will be there.